Y'all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning all. Thanks for showing up. Nice to see you all here on this Saturday, right? Today's Saturday, thanks. Just checking on, make sure. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here?
I'm a soul gardener, as I found out from my friend Nancy, and I've been really interested in Buddhism, and I've been asking her a lot of questions. She's like, come with me.
Nice.
So I've been really excited to come, and it just worked out for today, so I'm excited.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
We like Nancy.
Like,
What's a soul gardener? I mean, I could
I'm
guess, but
planting seeds for people to help their soul grow. I'm
Nice.
a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
I've had a big spiritual shift and journey over the past 3 years. Nancy can attest I'm a different person than I grew up in.
Yeah.
I've just been helping people, and
Great. Well, we're glad you're here. Thanks for showing up.
thank you.
What else? I think I saw another hand somewhere. First time. Yeah.
Yeah, I just moved here from Baltimore, so I'm just looking around to see what different groups there are.
Right on. There are way better groups than this one. Just so you know. This is your first one. I keep looking. Yeah. I'll give you a list of places to go when we're done, and if you end up coming back, great. But you'll find better stuff out there. Yeah. What else? Glad you're here. Anyone else first time? All right. I laughed and I actually debated on whether or not I was going to mention this or not, and I will. Just, do any of you ever argue with people? On social media, do you ever argue with people? Never? Not anymore? Who said not anymore? Why not? There were two of you? Yeah, go ahead.
It's not productive.
Not productive.
No, it's
Yeah.
not good.
You mean proving to the actual stranger that you're right isn't worth your time?
Sometimes it's not about proving, but it's just so demeaning and it's
Yeah,
nasty. It doesn't change anything.
for sure. Thanks. Greg, did your hand go up? Greg? No. Oh. Anyone else like to argue with people on social media? The only reason I share this is because I find humor in it. And I say this hopefully not embarrassing the individuals, although I don't think either of them come here, so it's all right. But and I'm sure there's some Buddhist lesson in here somewhere, so if I share it, that'll make up some Buddhist teaching that applies to that. But I'll just share this anyways. I mean, I literally posted like a Rumi quote, okay? I mean, that's it, just a Rumi quote. And somebody responded, you know, nice quote, but it's actually from A Course in Miracles. And then someone else responded and said, no, it's actually from Rumi, which is 7 centuries before A Course in Miracles. So now I have two people arguing over who said the Rumi or A Course in Miracles quote. And I was thinking like, man, why? You know, why do we have to just, who cares? It doesn't matter. Maybe Donald Duck said it, you know? Like, why do we have to argue constantly? And in a time now where everything is just so polarized on social media, I mean, it always has been, but everything even more so now with what's going on, like, guard yourself, right? Oh, this is where I make up the Buddhist practice and it ties to that. I figured I'd get there eventually, you know. In Buddhist practice, specifically in Zen practice, we talk about guarding the senses. And this is, to me, one of the most valuable practices I've ever learned. And it's a daily practice. It's not anything that, you know, I pretend or expect or share for anybody to like master, but it's something to watch and observe. When you guard your senses, you're aware, right? In the Heart Sutra, they talk about no eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. No sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. And so the idea is all of these senses, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we see, what we touch, these trigger cravings. That's what they do. And we begin to recognize what we desire and what we have aversion to. And then we chase what we desire and we run away from our aversions. It's, to me, common sense, but if you don't stop long enough to actually pay attention to that, you might miss it. That what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, what we touch, we then have some sort of trigger that says like or dislike, want or don't want. And then we run towards it or we run away from it. And so our senses are constantly just feeding into everything that we do. So the practice of guarding your senses, and that's where in specific Zen traditions, why you sit and, you know, face the wall. The idea is that represents just blocking everything out, not shutting down, not shutting off, but blocking external stuff out as much as possible so you can then pay attention to the one thing that actually matters, which is what? You, your thoughts. Because your thoughts trigger everything. And our thoughts are triggered by every single thing around us. Anyone been angry at the way somebody like served your food at a restaurant? Right? Or cut you off in traffic, or made your latte the wrong way, you know, not enough pumps of vanilla, whatever it is. And so we're constantly triggered so easily by these little things. And to guard the senses is to practice observing what is triggering us. And that's it. We don't have to act on all of these. And that's why it's important to understand that we're not shutting them off. We're not ignoring them. We're observing them and becoming aware of them. We don't have to act on all of them. We actually don't have to act on any of them. But, you know, it's Saturday, so we'll go slow. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. For those who may be sitting for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. I mean, you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten slightly. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, same thing. Just sitting up straight. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means you need to move. We're not trying to shut the mind off. We're not trying to think nothing. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return to breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, all the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada. Means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react, more stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not always fun. It's not an escape. It's direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is not always so pleasant and wonderful. And oftentimes it is pleasant and wonderful. But this practice is learning to be with life as it arises, observing the thoughts, observing the words, and observing the actions. And being mindful of what we think, what we say, and what we do in every situation. And that's why it's a practice. It's not a 6-week course that all of a sudden you're done with and ready to move on to the next. It is understanding, for me as a practitioner, the very basic, simple, 2 pages to read teachings of Buddhism. And then practicing them every single moment of your life. Because that's incredibly difficult to do. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's all. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it requires patience, something that I know all of you are so wonderful at. And it requires patience with yourself, first and foremost. To understand that if you've been angry, sad, depressed, whatever it is for 30 years or however long, it's going to take more than 3 weeks to get through that. So we just keep showing up, we just keep practicing. And just being aware of what's going on. I think awareness is key. That's why I talked about at the beginning about guarding the senses and being aware of how quickly we are triggered, how quickly we do lose focus on what's actually important, how quickly we let other people's words and actions just destroy us. And it doesn't mean that for those who are new to Buddhist practice, this isn't about just, as I say, laying down and becoming a doormat. Please engage, please speak your mind, please fight for many things that need to be fought for. But do it in a way that comes from a place of love and kindness and not from anger and hatred, because there's a definite difference and it can be done. So with that, I think I'll just pause. For me, as always, I really just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, for those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free as you are to say hello. If you have any questions, put them on the chat box there. I'll do my best to respond as well. But we'll just open up the rest of our brief time to thoughts, questions, anything you're sitting with. And we'll go from there. Yeah.
So I came across an article or a book that was explaining that meditation done properly can help grow healthy gray matter in the brain, and then I saw something else around some experiment where they were actually able to determine when people sitting are actually creating that gray matter. They could actually see it happening in real time. But in the absence of that, there may be an app for that for the rest of us, but in the absence of that, what are some of the signals and signs that you could look for either during or after you're sitting that tell you that you're doing it properly?
If you were driving, well, first off, I was all with you until you said doing it properly. Abandon the proper thought. First off, I'll come back to that, but if you were driving right now, the second you finished your meditation practice and somebody cut you off, would it matter? Right now.
I don't get upset by that anyway, so it's not an issue for me.
So what do you get upset at?
I guess probably the a lot of what I see in the media, a lot of the hatred in the media, a lot of the divisiveness, the polarization in the media that is exploited.
Understood. So think of practice as you ever boiled water?
Sorry?
You ever boiled water?
Mhm.
Okay. When you boil water, old school stove, right? Flame, pot, water. Water is boiling. You take it off the stove for 5 minutes. Put it back on the stove. It takes a while till it boils again, right? Take it off the stove for 5 seconds. Put it back on the stove. What happens?
Boils faster.
Boils faster.
Got it.
Think of your practice as you are a pot of boiling water, and you just need to calm down. Don't look for whether you're doing it right. I could speak forever on this gray matter stuff. It's like you said, you're probably not going to be watching that. Yes, long-term meditation practice changes gray matter of the brain, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, all that smart stuff. But the reality is, with practice, you'll be triggered less. But you have to stop looking for proof, is my suggestion. You want to make sure you're doing it right, because our whole lives we've been told that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. What I'm suggesting is you abandon this idea of doing something right or wrong and just sit. Do that every day for the next 3 years. And then ask yourself the question you asked me. How has this changed me? Because what I say won't matter. I could tell you all kinds of ways it changed me, but I'm not you. Anyone who's been in here with the practice for 10 years could tell you how it's changed them, but they're not you. Looking for someone else's answers about how it can change you won't do you any good. Do this every day for 3 years. And then ask yourself how it's changed you. Yeah. Because it will. Most likely. If not, you're just doing it wrong. And then I advise you get somebody else to guide you. What else? Yeah.
You, going back to social media, you post to social media pretty consistently. I'm just curious your experience. I love the baby sloths.
What'd you say? You love the what?
The baby sloths, I feel like you have a lot of sloths in there.
Oh, the babies. Yes. Babies, dogs, goats. Come on now. You gotta smile more.
That was kind of my question, like, what's your intent with your consistent social media use?
To make people, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And how do you guard yourself? Because I assume like being on social media and posting, you're also seeing things, like how do you guard yourself, or any tips on guard if you want to put positive out there, but not have the feeling of all the negativity?
Yeah, great question. Not that your question wasn't great, but the social media stuff, so the question for those who didn't hear virtually was, for me sharing a lot of stuff and babies and dogs and goats and that kind of stuff, how do I guard myself from not being just kind of bombarded, overwhelmed with all the madnesses that's out there? One way is by posting babies, goats, and dogs, things that are beautiful and happy and cute and make you laugh. And The other thing is, it's interesting that even though I brought up the thing about this morning, because I'm just, like I said, it's only like back and forth like 4 times. I'm just watching in like sadness and amusement and laughter at the whole debate over, who said it. But one thing I do personally is I don't engage. I'm pretty much a one-way poster, meaning I'm putting my stuff out there that I like to share to try to motivate, inspire, bring laughter, bring joy, bring happiness, calm people down. But I don't get myself wrapped up in, if somebody comes back with blah, 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 you'll very rarely, if ever, see a reply or comment from me. That's one way. I don't engage in social media as much as I'm on it and sharing stuff, right? The other thing is I see, obviously, all of that. But it's actually pretty funny what you share. This is the whole scary algorithms or whatever they do behind social media. What you share actually determines what shows up, So what shows up on my feeds is babies and dogs and goats. And that makes me laugh, and Garfield, someone asked me years, it actually comes up a lot, but somebody asked me very specifically years ago, like, do I think the Buddha would have used social media? Absolutely, right? I mean, 2,500 years ago in India, they were walking a lot to share these teachings and reach millions of people. Imagine if one little simple post could reach millions of people. Well, we can't imagine that, right? So the challenge, which is really the nature of your question, isn't about whether it's good or bad, but how do we utilize it as a tool that can be beneficial? And for me, I view it as no different than any other thing. What are my thoughts? What are my words? What are my actions? What are my intentions? What is my intention? To me, that's what Buddhist practice is. What is my intention behind each thing I share? And when we share on social media, to me, the practice of right speech is there. Buddhist teachings on right speech. Is it necessary? Is it timely? Is it true? Right? Apparently, I need to research Rumi quotes to see if it's true. But is it divisive? Are we causing conflict? Now, apparently, if there are people who love dogs and hate dogs, then I guess I'm causing great conflict. But those aspects of looking at Buddhist teachings around the precepts, right, go into, for me, no differently than a conversation. In theory, what I intend and what my intention is behind the conversation is to be mindful of these things. Am I always obviously there? No. Do I say or do things I shouldn't do? Absolutely. But am I just blunt, just deeply aware of it from practice? Yes. So I think using them as tools to make people smile and become aware is important. Yeah. And again, the guarding the senses of, I see the negative stuff that's out there. I see the pain and the death and the loss and everything that's going on. I see it. But you have to balance. I suggest, you don't have to do anything, but I suggest you balance that with stuff that makes you happy and laugh. Otherwise, it can be just overwhelming. And if you're somebody in here who watches news stuff 3 hours a day and it just crushes you, you probably don't need to watch it 3 hours a day. I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying, turn your back on it, but an hour and a half would probably give you enough of what you need to know. So just be mindful of how much time we spend on those types of things and the effect it has on you. Yeah. What else? There's a question here. What does Buddhism teach about perseverance through hard times? How does the practice help sustain you through times when things feel too hard to get through? So to your question, Carol, and obviously you're not here for me to see you nod your head up and down, but I would ask you, have you been through hard times before? Sam, have you been through hard times before?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wanted you to nod your head. There we go. Thank you very much. So you've been through hard times before. You got through them, right?
Mhm.
Carol, did you get through them? You got through them. So clearly, hard times that you're going through, you can get through them all. Buddhist practice around impermanence is really important to understand when you're facing challenges, difficulties, hard times. I'll come back to perseverance in a minute, but when you're dealing with challenges, when you bring impermanence into it, you immediately begin to understand whatever challenge you're facing right now, whatever difficulty. I'm sure every one of us in this room has some challenge or difficulty we're going through right now. And I'm not going to make up a number, but a very high percentage of those challenges and difficulties we're going through right now, 6 months from now, will be completely resolved. But guess what? What's going to happen 6 months from now? There'll be some other challenge 6 hours from now, 6 days from now, 6 months from now. So these challenges will come and go. I think, I don't want to say mistake, but I think the piece that is not beneficial is for us to think that one day challenges are just miraculously going to disappear. If we understand that challenges are a part of life. I mean, that Buddha dude said, the very first thing he taught was life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. And he said that right away. He's a pretty smart guy. And he was like, hey, your life is going to be filled with suffering. Filled with it. But all of a sudden we face suffering and we're like, I don't want it. Understand it will go away. When you understand it will go away, or change, or be altered, or shifted, or somehow, it can actually help you, I think, coming back to the perseverance part, it can help you persevere because when we look at, and this is the practice of diligence, right, effort with Buddhist teachings, when we apply diligence, we apply, and this is the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva here, the statue that represents great effort, great diligence, great perseverance. When we apply diligence and effort with pure intention, pure heart, pure mind, we can get through it. But this practice is not about being lazy. It requires tremendous discipline. And very often, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I think discipline is overlooked. It's not a kind of a key buzz Buddhist word you hear talked about a lot. At least I haven't heard it in the last 20 years. But I found discipline to be probably the most important Buddhist practice there is. Because all of our suffering comes from the nature of our mind. And training the mind and being disciplined with our thoughts and our words and actions can drastically change the way you move through the world. But that requires tremendous discipline. So when we apply discipline with right intention, then we can have tremendous, coming back to your question, perseverance. And it helps to understand that challenge will go away. Or it might get more difficult and more challenging. And then maybe it'll get less challenging, and then maybe it'll disappear. And maybe it'll stay there forever. But challenges are really just opportunities to practice. Karmalekshi Somo is a great Tibetan Buddhist nun. She taught with us for years. She recently retired and moved to Hawaii. She was a professor at USD. But she used to always say that her teacher used to always tell her, anytime any challenges would arise, and Lexi would do it in her beautiful way, she would say, blessings, blessings, blessings. So when you face challenges, see them as wonderful opportunities to practice. So hopefully that's helping, Carol. Or will help. What else? Yeah.
So I have a specific challenge in the same
Yes.
way. I'm flying with a cat in the very near future. I've never done that. I'm very nervous about all the possibilities. Obviously, I'm not living in the moment. You know, is he going to make a mess of himself? Are other people going to hate me for having him?
Yes and yes.
Really stressed. And I'm wondering how I can, instead of being really anxious about the situation, use it as a teacher and, you know, not react in the moment when he inevitably does something awful at 2 a.m. on a plane.
Yeah, what if you inevitably do something awful on the plane at 2 a.m.? How do you think the cat feels about it? Have you discussed this with the cat? You're so worried. You're actually being kind of selfish about this. Well, how do you think the cat feels about flying at 2 a.m. on an airplane, however many thousands of feet in the air, and all you're worried about is your anxiety? Put yourself in the cat's pause for a minute. Yeah, I mean, this, whether it's flying with a cat, whether it's, you know, work, whether it's school, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, as always with your questions, you've answered them in the question themselves. You're just not coming back to the fact that the practice is to stay in the present moment. When is this flight?
Monday.
Monday. And today is what?
Saturday.
Saturday. So come Monday, that's a song, right? Come Monday, it'll be all right. Or it won't be all right.
Yeah.
Your anxiety over it, does your anxiety or nervousness or fear or worry change or impact the experience at all?
No.
No. Does your effort or desire to try to control the situation change it at all?
Mm-hmm.
No. And today's Saturday. So come back to the things you're worried about today. Bring your anxiety to the present moment. Are you worried about anything right now sitting there on that cushion? No. Why not?
It's all going well.
It's all going well. What if I start throwing stuff at you? And then it changes. But at least then you're not worried about Monday. At least you're worried about right now. Worry about what's happening now. You'll have plenty of time on Monday to worry about Monday. Nothing I say is going to help you on Monday not be worried on Monday. So I'm just trying to keep you from panicking until you get to Monday. When Monday arrives, then panic. And also understand that your panic will do zero except make you feel worse.
Yeah.
And the cat needs you in that moment to be at your best. So be strong for the cat. What's your cat's name?
Perry.
Perry. Be strong for Perry. Yeah. How long's the flight?
Total travel time's like 10 to 12 hours, but flight time.
Anyone flown with a cat for 10 to 12 hours? Okay, so meet Sam. You can all huddle up in the back corner after class. That would be great. I'm sure they have wonderful tips. But really with anything, again, as I said, with anything, anxiety, whether it's that or any example that we're all dealing with right now, it has a lot to do with our desire and craving very often to try to control a situation. And this is something that occurs in our lives nonstop. And so the practice is to just sit, be present with the emotions as they arise, observe them as they arise, allow them to be what they are, which is just temporary emotions, temporary thoughts that will change. And try not to control everything in your life, because it'll make you crazy. You know? What else? Yeah.
If I can make a comment on Sam's cat.
Yeah.
So one thing I've learned in my short Buddhist practice is, although you can't control the moment, you can prepare for the moment and do your best to prepare, and then there's the outcome. So maybe that's a special cat blanket, or maybe that's, I'm not saying you should, but people sedate their cats, or maybe you're prepared for the flight or whatever it is, but it's not leaving the moment to chance. It's doing your best and then living with the outcome. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jeff, but that's kind of what I've heard you say before.
Yeah. You can do your best, but then you're still leaving it to chance.
Well, living it to the way things are.
Yes, but what I mean is, even in preparing it, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just, even in preparing it,
It is what it is.
yeah, it's still just gonna happen. Yeah, but yes. And you weren't suggesting Sam states Sam, were you? Just wanted to be
Maybe
clear.
that's the answer. Maybe he needs to be said. I don't know.
Someone's gotta watch Perry now. I told you there's better places than this to go to. I did warn you. You know, like I went to this Buddhist place and all they talked about was sedating cats. I'm not a fan of sedating cats, for the record. I just want to throw it out. What else? Thoughts? Not that you are either. Yeah, anyone else want to follow that up? Thoughts or questions? Yeah, in the back.
How would you separate the being prepared part from the being anxious part?
Say that again. How do you separate being prepared from being anxious?
Yeah, I have a hard time sometimes figuring
Sure. So I think semantics here, and I'll kind of close with this thought, but to what David's saying, and I agree, preparation for everything is part of this practice to try to minimize conflict, pain, suffering. Mindful, wise, compassionate thoughts, words, and actions, in theory, can potentially create a greater is the wrong word, a healthier, more pleasant outcome. But it doesn't always work that way. And so the way to your question, the way to separate, I think that's what you're saying, how do you separate preparation from kind of the expectation of the outcome, is to abandon all expectations. My master always said, learn to expect nothing from anyone or anything ever. That's all you have to do. One thing. It's like city slickers. It's all about one thing. Just drop every expectation you ever have in your entire life, every moment, and you will never be disappointed. You will be present with what's actually happening. Now, dropping expectations doesn't mean, again, especially this comes up a lot when I say this around relationships, it doesn't mean that if you're in a relationship and you drop your expectation from your relationship partner and they're treating you like crap, it doesn't mean that you need to stay in that relationship, as an example. But it means that you're no longer expecting people to be a certain way. You know why? Because they're going to be who they are and how they are. But our problem is we want to mold and shape and shift people and places and things into being a certain way so they meet our expectation. There's a lot of control, a lot of sense of self, a lot of ego in that. So prepare all you want for everything, for life, right? For work, for school, for relationships. Prepare everything. Everything is a preparation. Right, coming into this, so we prepare this laptop to be here so Carol could sit there at home or wherever she is and ask the question. But when you prepare things, you also know that maybe this won't work. Maybe nobody's there. Maybe none of you are here. Maybe I'm talking to myself. That's fine too. You just do things. You drop any expectation. And that is deeply, deeply altering to your way of being. And was also the exact opposite for me of everything that I had ever done my entire life. Which is why that teaching was so incredibly important. And it goes back to Ian's question at the beginning about the meditation practice, is that we have these expectations that we want things to work. And not just meditation, but everything in life. Drop the idea of something working and embrace the idea of things just happening. Things just occur. And if they're not happening to the way we like them, what does that typically mean? Especially in a conflict. If it's not happening the way we like it, what does that mean about what's happening?
Disappointment.
Say again?
We had expectation.
What it means is it's happening the way someone else likes it. Oh, but we don't like that. Right? If something happens the way we don't like something, very often in a conflict, it means it's happening the way someone else wants it to happen. And we're not okay with that. So, abandon expectations. If and when at all possible. And again, to clarify for those who are new to this practice, it doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean that the way things happen are not important. It doesn't mean that people can just run around treating people like crap, even though they're going to do that anyways. It means your sense of health, happiness, physical, mental, emotional. Physical is a little different. You need to be safe and careful, please. Especially mentally and emotionally as well. But your happiness is not contingent upon someone else's thoughts, words, or actions. You are guarding your senses and knowing that you are okay and at peace, regardless of what happens. And this has a lot to do with the social media question too. I see all the disgusting stuff out there, but all I can do is whatever I can do to change it, but I have to stay at peace. Because if I don't stay at peace, then there's more of a mess, adding to the already mess. So, all right, so I'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. Nice to see you all. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our unenlightened views of Buddhist practice and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on with different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. Every Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do a food redistribution program. It's a beautiful volunteer practice where anytime you think your life sucks, if you feed people that sleep on the street every night, tends to put things into perspective. So we gather at 5 o'clock, we prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we then head downtown and feed people sleep on the street. So it's a great way to just kind of get involved and spend some time with other people and do good stuff. Couple things, really probably just one thing out of the ordinary coming up. This will be our 18th annual New Year's Eve celebration. It's a pretty wild party here at the Dharma Bum Temple. As you could imagine, the disco ball comes down and everything. At 7 o'clock, we do a vegetarian potluck. 9 o'clock, I tell a history of the Dharma Bum Temple. And then at about 11:30, we all come in here and we do about a 20-minute silent meditation into the new year. The whole night's not silent, just the last kind of 20-minute meditation part. So if you've never done a silent and sober New Year's, here's your opportunity to get them both done out of the way at the same time, and I promise you'll survive from it. Some people come at 7, they're home and in bed by 9 o'clock, which is where I'd rather be, but I got to be here leading the meditation. Some people come at 9 just for the history part, and then a bunch of people end up showing up usually around 11:30 as well. So people come in and out all night, welcome to come at any point in time. But it's a nice way, like I said, to kind of end one year and go into the next. Other than that, if anybody, there's always a list inside the bathroom if anyone wants to help outside the garden or pick up or clean. Also, it's been shared a lot, but if anybody missed it, tomorrow, Sunday, 4 o'clock, we're having a volunteer appreciation event. So if for some reason if you are a volunteer in any way, shape, or form around the Dharma Bum Temple, and if for some reason you missed that invite, it's tomorrow here at 4 o'clock. So any service you've done, any volunteer activities you've done, anything through the temple, will be here tomorrow at 4 o'clock as a way to just send tremendous gratitude and appreciation to probably the 80 to 100 people that really make this place happen. So like I said, anyway, if you've served food, if you've done peanut butter and jelly stuff, if you've helped in the garden, any way you volunteer here, we'll be here tomorrow at 4 o'clock to celebrate you all. So thank you for everything you do. I wish you well. Buddha for you is there, open if you need anything, and enjoy your day. And blessings and good luck to Perry.